Okay, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We are live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you can see and hear me clearly, please drop a one in the live chat, and then we can get today's show started. As I'm waiting for the ones to come into the live chat, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, because that's the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does is that it helps make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get the notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm as well. Secondly, if you haven't already, maybe you're one of those ghost watchers who are always watching my content but not hitting the subscribe button. Please do me a favor and yourself a favor by hitting the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, but most importantly, make sure you follow me on Telegram. I cannot beg of you to do that enough. Telegram at TD Media Group, to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. And if there's one thing I know for sure, I know the Telegram notifications are getting sent out whenever I see my man Papa Naya Shelley come through, because I believe that that's the way that he gets notified for my live streams and videos. So shout out to him and all of you who are on Telegram. So now I see the ones are coming into the chat. Let's get today's show started. And I want to start here first. I want to start with this very interesting story coming out of Massachusetts, because it looks like the governor, I believe her name is Maura Healey, if I'm remembering correctly. Maura Healey is having a change of heart concerning mass deportations and her willingness to work with the Trump administration to get rid of foreign national threats in her state. We all remember at the top of Trump winning the election in a bloodbath against Kamala Harris, she was one of the very first people to come out and say that she will not be cooperating with the Trump administration, and that she will not be allowing local law enforcement to separate families and things like that, right? Well, how things have changed. Things have definitely changed, and changed drastically. Let's get into this news clip right now so we can hear her pretty much walk that stuff back. Let's get into that first.
Massachusetts Democratic Governor Maura Healey is making it clear that her state is not a sanctuary state for migrants, even though 8 Massachusetts cities, including Boston and Cambridge, have declared sanctuary status. Sanctuary policies are designed to limit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement, with their primary goal to protect undocumented immigrants from being detained or deported by federal authorities.
To make a difference, we're seeing the number of migrant families coming into Massachusetts go way down. That's good, because I've also sent the message. Massachusetts, we are not a sanctuary state. If you come here, there is not housing here.
Oh, really? Are you sure about that? Now we're sending that message out? I'm not so convinced that she was always sending that message out, but she definitely is now.
In August 2023, Governor Healey declared a state of emergency over the influx of migrants into her state, calling on the Biden administration to help provide funding and work releases for arriving migrant families, as the state's shelter capacity became unsustainable. Immigration was a top issue for voters in November's election, and President-elect Donald Trump vowed to carry out the largest deportation of undocumented immigrants in U.S. history. Quickly after Trump's re-election, Healey said state and local law enforcement would absolutely not cooperate with the feds. However, her comments changed this week when she stated violent criminals should be deported.
And my view, John, on immigration is that violent criminals, people who are creating public safety threats in our communities, should be deported if they're not here lawfully.
Healey says she's hoping Trump and the incoming Congress can pass badly needed immigration reform.
Remember, this is a federal issue. It was created by the federal government. It's why I've advocated so hard for a bill to fix the border. President Trump has come in. He's promised to fix the border. I hope he does just that, and he's got control of both Congress and Senate now. So get that done, Mr. President.
What this goes to show me is what I've been highlighting and what I've been expressing over the past couple of weeks, is that as it pertains to the PR battle over the mass deportations, right? Currently, as it stands, Trump and Homan is winning the PR war for mass deportation. Right? What Democrats are looking forward to happening is that hopefully there'll be some sort of tragedy that occurs in the midst of the mass deportation. Hopefully they can get some video clips of, mothers being taken away while babies are crying, so they can cry about, family separation and things of that nature. But currently, as it stands, these people look completely crazy, meaning the Democrat governors and mayors. They look completely insane when you have someone like Tom Homan, and Trump for that matter, stating over and over and over again, we want to get rid of these national security threats. We want to get rid of these international gangs. And you have people like Governor Healy saying, we're not going to cooperate with you. Well, that looks bad on them. And as it pertains to re-election and their future in politics, that's pretty much going to go out the window and or down the drain if they actually are standing in the way of these deportation efforts, and people in their states and or cities are finding themselves being hurt, robbed, violated, as it pertains to these guys violating women, and murdered and things of that nature, right? So like I said, this is a good thing. Currently, Homan is winning the PR battle, and hopefully that will sustain itself for some time to come. Now, what I want to transition into right now is Biden, because Biden, along with Newsom, is working overtime to frustrate the process of mass deportation, right? I want to get into this quick news clip from Fox News before we elaborate more on what Biden is doing and the significance of what he would like to do.
Here's Chief Washington correspondent Mike Emanuel. Good evening, Mike.
Right, good evening. The New York Times is reporting the Biden administration is considering extending protection for immigrants with temporary protected status. That allows people from dangerous countries to live and work in the U.S. legally. If President Biden were to extend it, President-elect Trump would have to wait for those protections to expire or cut them off early, which could lead to lawsuits. If Biden takes this action, it's believed it would make it harder, though not impossible, for President Trump to deport this group of people. A Biden ally says the outgoing president is anxious about what is ahead.
Okay. Of course, the president is gravely concerned about what President-elect Trump might do. But as President Biden repeatedly said, you can't only love your country when you win. He is committed to the process of democracy.
In Phoenix,
he's committed to the process of holding up and frustrating mass deportation. That's what he's committed to doing.
In Phoenix yesterday, President-elect Trump suggested he wants to get started right away.
Your border is a disaster. Your border is a disaster, what's going on. And you just have a few days to wait. We're going to be fully operational, I would say, by about 2 o'clock on the 20th. 20th of January.
The incoming White House press secretary says that while the new Trump administration wants swift action, some details are still being worked out.
Well, securing the southern border, perhaps looking at Title 42. Many of these executive actions are still being considered by our policy teams and also our lawyers.
Title 42 is the Trump policy that allowed for asylum seekers to be removed from the country. The White House has not responded to our request for comment.
Now, I want to get into the significance of Joe Biden possibly extending the temporary protection status, right? And this is something that we've gone over and discussed before concerning the flight, right, of American citizens leaving these DNC state and cities like Illinois, California, and New York. Over the last, I want to say close to a decade now, year after year after year after year, their population shrinks and gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And the significance of that is that it impacts the number of delegates that these states have representing them in the House of Representatives. And that also impacts the number of electoral college votes that you'll have in the presidential election, right? So like I said, we've discussed this before, but now we have hard numbers on our hand where we can see actually this year the number of people who fled California, who left Illinois, who left New York versus the number of illegal immigrants that came into those cities, in which the illegal immigrants coming into those states/cities are now offsetting the number of people that are leaving those states and cities, right? So I want to really jump into that right now. So let's do that here. This, I was going to say this migrant. This article is titled "The Sanctuary State Migrant Boom." I repeat, the sanctuary state migrant boom. Let's get into this very quickly. A Democrat is are Democrats in self-declared sanctuary states trying to attract, I keep saying are are Democrats in self-declared sanctuary states trying to attract illegal immigrants to compensate for growing domestic flight to other states? We all know the answer to that question is yes. It's a fair question, as the Census Bureau's latest report on state population shows that New York, California, Illinois have reversed a years-long trend of declining population, but only thanks to foreign migration. Let's read that one more time. The latest report on state population shows that New York, California, and Illinois have reversed years-long trend of declining population, but only thanks to foreign migration. I hate that they say thanks to foreign migration. It's thanks to illegal immigration. Okay, let's be clear on that. The U.S. has added a record 2.8 million immigrants between 2023 and 2024, illegal immigrants, that is, nearly 5 times as many as in 2019, and on top of the 4 million who arrived from 2021 to 2023. Most recent immigrants are fleeing poverty in their home countries and are using asylum loopholes to stay in the US. These are not asylum loopholes. The border was busted wide open by Biden intentionally, and fleeing poverty is not a claim for asylum, and that never has been. I just have to make sure I clarify these things as I'm reading for people that may not know and understand these things, right? While many migrants moved to Texas, 319,000, and Florida, 411,000, masses also flocked to California, 361,057, New York, 207,161, Illinois, 112,955, and New Jersey, 130,692. In the latter sanctuary states, foreign migration, and this is what's really important right here. In the latter sanctuary states, foreign migration more than offsets domestic outmigration. Here's the number of people that left California in that same year. So as a comparison, right? Let's go back. How many people came into California? 361,000 illegal immigrants came into California versus 239,000 who left. In New York, you had 207,000 who came in versus 120,000 who left. In Illinois, you had 112,000 who came in versus 56,000 who left. Do you see how they're offsetting this now? So when people are sitting here telling you that Greg Abbott is just busing these people in willy-nilly against their will, that's not true. They know exactly where they're going to go, and they know exactly where they want to be sent to when they get here. And this is why you also see that they're fighting tooth and nail to keep them, because look at how much this illegal immigration is offsetting the exodus, right? That is insane. When you're talking about a place like California, and I'm not going to reread all the numbers again, but just briefly, when you're talking about 361,000 coming in versus 239,000 that exited, it completely offset the number of people that exited the state versus those who came in. Despite the Biden migrant surge, most Democratic states are still growing much more slowly than the nation as a whole. As a result, they will almost certainly lose seats in the House and votes in the Electoral College after the 2030 census and next congressional reapportionment. Their loss may be Republicans' gain. And that's the big thing there, right? If they aren't able to hold on to these illegal immigrants that are coming into their states and cities, because illegal immigrants are counted on the census as well, which is something that Trump wanted to get removed when he was in office the last time around, but wasn't successful in doing so. They are counted on the census. This is why they are so desperate to keep them, right? Because if they start getting removed out of there, then that's pretty much the end of Democrats as far as electoral college votes are concerned, as well as congressional seats in the House of Representatives are concerned, right? They're looking at a massive deficit in seats, which they will lose a lot of political power because of this. If current population trends continue, here are the numbers now. California would lose 4 seats and New York 2. Illinois, Oregon, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island would lose 1 each, right? Meanwhile, on the flip side, and I don't have this part highlighted, but I'll read it to cap this article off. Because everybody's leaving these states, these liberal states, right, and headed over to Republican red states, Texas and Florida would each add 4, while North Carolina, Arizona, Utah, and Idaho would gain 1. You get what I'm saying? So they are desperate, very desperate to hold on to these legal immigrants, regardless of if they have a criminal record or not, regardless of if they're part of a gang, Trinidad Agua, or they're a cartel or not. They want to keep everybody because keeping them helps them maintain the little bit of power that they have left, at least for the moment. So now what I want to do next is that I want to transition over to a few things Tom Homan had to say concerning family separation, right? We all know, some of you may know, I get a little agitated when I hear the whole thing about family separation. I'll probably go into my family separation spiel once it's playing, but that's something that I just despise hearing about just because of the hypocrisy of it all, right? And I've given this example so many times, right? If I commit a crime and I get arrested and I get taken to jail, or any other citizen commits a crime and they get taken to jail, well, nobody's crying family separation. What about TD's son? Who's going to pick up his 11-year-old son from school? Nobody cares. But when these folks here are committing crimes, right? They violated the law. You've come into the country unlawfully. You have a deportation order on you and you get snatched up. Well, now all of a sudden, you having a child here is supposed to be a get out of jail free pass. And that's what Homan's going to discuss a little bit. And I want to get into that right now because I want to elaborate a little bit more into the things that he's going to discuss. So let's jump into this clip right now. I believe it's from News Nation.
President-elect Trump is promising those tough border policies. It was part of the reason for his victory, as many Americans have been concerned about immigration, the crisis at our southern border, and his administration's selections are already preparing for day one. And Trump's top border official, Tom Homan, is certainly speaking out quite boldly with a lot in the press, with many people in many interviews, including News Nation. He is the incoming border czar. He says the new White House will bring back the migrant family detention in their border crackdown. Our Allie Bradley is joining us right now live. And Allie, you had the chance to speak with Tom Homan this morning. What did he tell you?
Yeah, Adrian, you're exactly right. So when Tom Homan is talking about family separation, he said, we won't separate families, we'll just deport them together. But here's the thing, these deportations take time. They're going to have to detain some of these people. And the reality is some of these individuals have had U.S. citizen-born children. You can't detain U.S. citizens. So the administration right now is navigating these pathways and says they're actually considering halfway houses for these U.S.-born children. Take a listen.
As far as U.S. children, that's going to be a difficult situation because we're not going to detain U.S. citizen children, which means, they're going to be put in a halfway house, or they can stay at home and wait for the officers to get the travel arrangements and come back and get the family. The best thing to do is for family to self-deport themselves, because that makes it easier for the family. They can get their their arrangements all together, and they can leave on their own behalf.
So as you just heard, the Borders are there saying that they want these families to make the decision to leave together on their own, saying that they're going to contact these families, they're going to allow them some time to get their arrangements all together, and then they can self-deport. Homan says that the U.S. citizen child element has acted as a magnet, drawing more people to the United States. He says they want to put an end to that.
Having a U.S. citizen child does not make you immune to our laws. And that's not the message we want to send to the whole world, that you can have a child and you're immune to the laws of this country. We can't send that message, because if we do, you're never going to solve the border crisis, because they won't continue to come. They think there's a way out.
They're using their children as a get out of jail free pass, right? And once again, think about the ridiculousness of it. At least that's what the logic is, right? And what the attempt is. Imagine if you and I, as U.S. citizens, you can go out, commit a crime, regardless of how small or petty it is or may be, right? But you go out, you commit a crime. There's jail time that's going to follow behind it. So you are going to be separated from your family, technically, to which, nobody cares if I get separated from my son, right? But, you're going to get separated from your family. The police are on their way to come get you. And as they come to pick you up, you make a big stink about it and say, well, I have a child. I'll put it to you like this. Imagine if this is how the laws work. You commit a crime and you immediately go have a baby. Each crime you commit, you immediately go have a baby and use that baby as a get out of jail free pass. Could you imagine if that's how the law actually worked? That you can go out and commit whatever crime you wanted, but as soon as you pop out a baby, you're good money. Don't worry about it. No consequences for you, right? No consequences for you. This is the logic that these illegal immigrant advocates are using to justify not having mass deportations occur. And this is the logic that they're using to justify demonizing anybody who is in support of mass deportation, like me and most of you all listening, right? And over the majority of the US population that are for it, right? It's completely ridiculous, nonsensical, and absurd. The idea that popping out a baby absolves you from the crime that you have committed. It absolves you from breaking the law. It's not a get out of jail free pass, right? Now, what I want to do is that I want to let this play a little bit more, because he's going to get into the missing children, right? That have a lot of children have gone missing. I believe somewhere around 300,000 plus. Some people say 500,000 plus, but a lot of these children, unaccompanied minors, as they call them, have gone missing. And I want to speak to that a little bit. So I'm going to let this play some more as we get into that portion of the video.
Now, Adrian, Homan went on to tell me that when it comes to DNA testing, they found in the past that 30% of the families tested were fraudulent. They weren't real families. Under the Biden administration, they stopped doing mandatory DNA testing. It was a voluntary basis only. Tom Homan says they're going to put an end to that. They are bringing back mandatory DNA testing for every family unit. They're going to make sure those kids are with the correct families. He also says he's going to be working in lockstep with HHS as they oversee the Office of Refugee Resettlement, which handles these unaccompanied children. He says they have the data. He says he will be part of going and finding these some 320,000 unaccompanied children that are kind of unaccounted for right now. He says he is going to be there on the front lines helping find them, because that is the will of the American people, Adrian.
Well, it's a third of a billion, 300,000, a third of a million people who are underage, who are under the age of 18, who we don't know where they are. When they came into the country under the previous or this current administration, the Biden administration, there was absolutely no vetting. You and I have both been pretty vocal on social media, going back and forth with different sourcing on this. Most Americans want to know where those kids are, and most Americans, according to recent polling, are for mass deportations. But do we know, in terms of cost, what it's going to look like in terms of impact for the American taxpayer?
Before we get into that, I want to make sure that I highlight this, right? I made reference to this book a few times in the past, right? if I remember correctly, the title of the book is Overrun. I forget what the subtitle is, but it's the title of the book is Overrun, if I remember correctly. And it was a book that highlights, basically, essentially in a nutshell, how Biden, completely destroyed and eviscerated the U.S. border. But in the book, what they talk about concerning children is how a lot of these illegal immigrants crossing the border, they use their children as currency. What do I mean by that? Using their children as currency. We all know that they have to pay the cartel and or whatever other smugglers to come through Mexico and to get them across the border, right? But a lot of them can't afford that. They can't afford it, the price tag. So it may be a price tag of about $5,000. But what they will do is that the cartel and or said smuggler will say, you know what? Give me one of your children and I'll give you a discount on the price. And what they do with the child is that they take the child and that essentially they'll hand them over, we'll say, right? Hand them over to other people that are trying to cross the border. Because if you cross the border with a child, the way our laws are currently structured, that illegal immigrant so-called family will receive priority, right? Therefore, any and everything they need in terms of services will be expedited. They will be immediately put in five-star hotels. When you're talking about cash cards and free housing and all of the benefits that come with being an illegal immigrant, if you have a so-called family, you will get these things ASAP, immediately, if you have a family. And as you just heard here, and I discussed in the past before, the Biden administration stopped doing DNA testing at the border. And the DNA testing that they used to do at the border was a strong deterrent because people, a lot of them who are coming in with their so-called families, when they knew that they were going to get DNA tested, they would come clean immediately. The overwhelming majority of them would immediately come clean because they would rather come clean and say, hey man, this kid isn't actually mine and we're not an actual family, than essentially get busted, right? It's the equivalent of turning yourself in or just telling on yourself versus me having to find out that you yourself are engaging in this kind of smuggling operation where you're bringing a child into the country that isn't your child. You get what I'm saying? But Biden eliminated that. He eliminated that. So with eliminating that, the transferring of children from one legitimate migrant family to now an illegitimate migrant family is happening like crazy. And the thing is, and I'll round this out because I don't want to beat a dead horse too much, as they discussed in the book Overrun, let's say I'm someone who took on one of these children, right? I paid the cartel to say, hey, I'll give you more money if you can get me a child that I can bring across the border with me to expedite this process. These guys will cross the border, or women, right? Men or women, they'll cross the border with that child that isn't theirs. And then once they cross the border, they look at the child and go, good luck. Yeah, I don't know where your parents are, you know what I mean? But good luck with all that. Because what ends up happening is that that child with the fake family, with the fake father or the fake mother, they're now somewhere, they get sent somewhere in New York. And the mother, or father who actually gave their child away, essentially sold them, they get sent somewhere else to California, just depending on where they wanted to go. And like I said, now the kid is just left stranded in New York City, California, Denver, Illinois, somewhere in Chicago. You know what I mean? They're just stranded somewhere in DC to now get scooped up by those who engage in, trafficking concerning little ones, we'll say, right? And or get scooped up by Tren de Aragua and recruited by them and say, hey, we're your family now. And since we're family now, you're going to do some work for us. You're going to do some jobs for us. And we don't have to worry about you getting stiff penalties because you're a minor, you're not an adult. This is a travesty what Biden has unleashed onto the country. right? And I strongly recommend that you guys, check that book out, Overrun, because it's a really, really, really good book concerning this topic of open borders. So now what I want to do is do I want to let this play some more? I think we're done with this video here. Yeah, I think we're done with this video here. What I want to get into next, and thank you all for the support that you're showing me via super chats. I will definitely be reading them at the end of the stream. But I do want to thank you guys very much. What I want to do now is get into this last clip here concerning Gavin Newsom and what he has going on, because essentially what he's proposing is a cash grab, right? This is really a money grab for so-called nonprofits, right? So I want to get into this video clip right now. I didn't get a chance, I should say, to listen to it myself. Normally I like to listen to these video clips first before I go live, but we will all, I should say, be hearing this for the first time together. Let's get into it, and then I'm going to get into an article that will further kind of highlight why I say what we're getting ready to see and hear here concerning Newsom's plan. Newsom's plan is really a cash grab for a lot of nonprofits that are going to take part in what he has going on, right? So let's get into this clip right now.
Ron Vitello served as Border Patrol chief during President Trump's first term. He's also been the acting director of ICE as well as a deputy commissioner of CBP. Ron, hope you had a fantastic Christmas. California is really trying to get out there, according to Gavin Newsom, in pushing back on the effort to finally get the border chaos under control. What do you make of this?
Merry Christmas, Griff. This is destructive leadership shown by.
If I can just, it's not really a joke, but I just found this humorous when I heard it just now. For those of you, this is kind of, you could say, somewhat of a treat to a degree, right? That have been with this channel for quite some time now. How many of you all remember when I used to call everything a grift, right? I said everything that I was doing was a grift. This grift, that grift, I'm doing this grift, everything was a grift. When I heard this just now, it sounded like he just said, Merry Christmas, grift. I don't know. I found that funny. I'm pretty sure it's not funny to you all, but I just wanted to highlight that. I thought that was humorous to me. Merry Christmas, grift. This was the Christmas grift going on Fox News.
The border chaos under control. What do you make of this?
Merry Christmas, Griff. This is destructive leadership shown by Gavin Newsom in California. We just had an election on November 5th. People voted for secure borders, safe streets, and knowing that the president was going to initiate a deportation effort, not just because he wants to, but because we just had about 12 million people enter the country and being encountered by CBP crossing the border illegally. Something must be done about what just happened over this last 4 years. And now he wants to use the state's funds and the state infrastructure to flout federal law. This is a state that has some of the highest income taxes in the country, some of the highest sales tax in the country, and it got a $68 billion deficit, billion with a B. And so he's going to use taxpayer resources to protect who exactly? People who are in the country illegally, who broke the law to be there, and have also broken the law in the jurisdictions in which they live in California. And so this is destructive leadership shown by Gavin Newsom, and it is not what people voted for. It's not what the people of California need, but that's unfortunately what they have, this terrible leadership in the likes of Gavin Newsom in California, who's going to destroy that state if he hasn't already gone a long way to do it.
Well, Ron, we were just showing our viewers video of migrants crossing in the San Diego sector in Jacumba, California, where I spent a lot of time reporting this past year. And Governor Gavin Newsom has actually come down to that location where we are seeing migrants coming from all over the world, from Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, and an unprecedented number of Chinese, all of which potentially could pose a national security risk, some of them hitting the terror screening database. Yet Gavin Newsom is saying that he is going to lean in and further protect migrants in the sanctuary jurisdiction. What possibly is his motivation?
Well, they're going broke because of the wokeness of his politics. And you're right, it's been out of control in the San Diego border for the last 4 years, give or take. And he just wants more of that. He wants to incentivize people who break the law by coming into the United States to come into California. What for? Because he thinks it's good for him politically. You know, he went to the White House not to complain about what's going on at the border. He went to the White House to measure the drapes. This guy has no business being in leadership in California or any other state. He is not helping the citizens who work hard and pay their taxes and want safe streets and secure borders.
Now, what I want to do, we don't have to let that carry on any further. I want to get into a little bit of Gavin Newsom's plans, right? I want to get into some of his plans concerning, in closing, as we round things out, how he plans on protecting illegal immigrants from Donald Trump and Tom Homan's and the American population as a whole, because over half the population support mass deportation. How he plans to stand in the way and frustrate mass deportation happening in California. This article here is titled Newsom's Team Moles Immigrant Support Plan to Counter Trump Deportations. Let's get into this very quickly, right? I want to jump into this right now. And also, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button. That's extremely important if you haven't done so already. And also, please make sure you follow me on Telegram. That is extremely important. Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. California Governor Gavin Newsom administration is drafting a potential plan to help illegal immigrants who may be threatened by incoming President Donald Trump's mass deportation threats, including resources to find legal aid. A draft of the plan obtained by Politico, entitled Immigrant Support Network Concept, proposes the creation of an immigration support network comprised of regional hubs to connect at-risk individuals, their families, and communities with community systems such as legal services, schools, labor unions, local government, etc. So he's looking at creating an entire support network or illegal immigrant support network to prevent these folks from being deported. It's one of the first indications of how a major blue state is thinking about ways to oppose the Trump administration. And remember, when you're opposing the Trump administration, essentially you're opposing half of the United States, right? On immigration, as Democratic leaders struggle to find their footing on the pivotal electoral issue. The governor called for a special legislative session shortly after the election to approve an additional $25 million in state funds for potential federal litigation, for instance. So that's coming out of, my pocket, right? Because I'm here in California, in LA to be exact. So some of my money is going to be going into this pool of $25 million. And that pool may actually increase as well, but we'll get to that at the end of the article. Newsom and his allies are particularly concerned about Trump's pledge mass deportations and the ripple effects in California, which has the largest population of illegal immigrants in the country. According to the draft, the California Department of Social Services would distribute state funds to eligible nonprofits. Money grab, money grab, money grab, money grab, money grab. I hate that nonprofits have gotten such a bad name throughout this time period that, the migrant crisis has been going on. And a lot of people for quite some time now, a lot of people have their reserves with, so-called nonprofits. Some people just don't trust them altogether. But as it pertains to this man-made migrant crisis, the Biden-Harris-made migrant crisis, whenever I hear nonprofit, I hear cash grab. That's what I hear. I hear cash grab. I hear these nonprofits receiving a lot more money than what will actually be spent on said services. Money, 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 money. Let's start from the top. According to the draft, the California Department of Social Services would distribute state funds to eligible nonprofits and take on administrative duties for the hubs. The draft does not indicate how much funding the plan would require. So we really don't know how much this is all going to cost here in California. They're just saying 25 million. Essentially, that's the floor. It could be a whole lot more than that. And some are really trying to increase it dramatically. But it says the money would go towards Community outreach. What is community outreach? Can somebody please help me explain what that means? What is community outreach? We're getting into these vague terms that mean absolutely nothing. And the only thing it means to me is cash grab. The money's going to community outreach. The money is going to partnerships. I don't know what that means. Can somebody please explain to me what are partnerships? What are they talking about? That just spells, once again, cash grab. Legal service staffing positions and approved administrative costs associated with hub operations. What? And approved administrative costs associated with hub operations. Everything I just read, essentially with the exception of legal service staffing positions, everything that I just read just screamed cash grab, because all this stuff is vague. It's all vague and essentially means nothing. Yeah, we don't know what any of this stuff is actually defined as. That just means give me money more than what I need to push these services forward so that I can pocket the overwhelming majority of it while spending the minimum amount required on said services and legally as well, right? And in closing, they're looking to make this and, have this become law before January 20th. And like I said, they're trying to expand it already. 25 million is kind of the floor. That's the starting point. But Senate Budget Chair Scott Wiener proposed legislation seeking $60 million, including funds to create an immigrant detention representation and coordination program. So they're looking at already bumping it to 60 million. Once again, 25 million being the floor. They're looking at bumping it up to 60 million. And I'm pretty sure that number is going to keep going higher and higher, 100 million and up like a rocket. We're out of here. And all that money is going to be taxpayer dollars here in California, once again, where I reside. So I guess, well, let me relax. I don't want to say too much. But with all that being said, man, that does it for today's show. We were here for a while, 42 minutes. That's long for me. That's a long show. So thank you all for joining me today, man. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video out on your social media platforms. And also, don't forget, please follow me on Telegram. I cannot beg for you to do that enough. Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram should be in the live chat. It's in the description box below and will be pinned in the comment section once the stream ends. And now what I want to do is get into those who showed support on today's show, because I don't exist without everybody else's support. And I always have to make sure to give my thank yous. It's only right. It's only right. Shout out to my man Saul, who stays keeping my family fed. He said, is family divorce court family separation? Exactly. I cannot stand. I can tell, my man Saul despises that whole family separation talking point as well. I really can't stand that. I cannot stand when I hear that whole thing about family separation, because as it pertains to American citizens, family separation is going on all day long. It's going on all day long, all day, every day, and nobody cares. No tears are flowed in our direction concerning any type of so-called family separation. But when you have folks that knowingly broke the law and now, as fugitives, knowingly made it a point to say, well, I'm going to start a family despite the fact that I'm on a run, you now don't get to cry about family separation. That's completely ridiculous. That's completely ridiculous. Once again, that's like me committing a crime, starting a family, and then saying, hey, why are you arresting me when I have a kid at home? That's ridiculous. If it doesn't work for me, it shouldn't work for anybody else. It's completely ridiculous. Shout out to my man, Jimmy Rucker, who said, as a black man with an 11-year-old son, get them out. Shout out to you and your 11-year-old son, Jimmy, and thank you for the support. Ron Livingston said, he said, Diddy got the kids. I shouldn't be laughing. I shouldn't laugh. All right. I guess technically I shouldn't laugh. I shouldn't, but I will. I will. Because I can't help it. He said, Diddy got those little ones. Did he, snatch them up? Did he snatch them up? Shout out to Sheila, who said, hit the like button Brothers and sisters, thank you very much for encouraging everybody to hit the like button. My man Saul spun the block, came back around and said, you think Maury was reading the results at the border? That a lot of dads got pissed off. You are not the father. A lot of them, when Trump was in office the first time around, and they were doing DNA testing at the border, they were self-admitting that they weren't the father before the DNA test could even happen. They would rather admit it beforehand than get caught, lying, Unfortunately, Trump is going to bring that back, but, Biden got rid of it. And in getting rid of it, here we are. What did they say? 320,000 little ones will say that are missing, children that are missing. Some say even as high as 500,000. That is crazy, completely absurd. Shout out to the Geek Surgeon who said something for the family. I appreciate you, Geek Surgeon, for the support. Ron Livingston ran it back, spun the block and said Gavin Newsom wants to do all this crazy stuff for migrants, but won't give black folks reparation. The F out of here. Well, you saw what happened over here concerning reparations, right? They slow walked you all the way to the finish line, with the whole, reparations task force and reparations bill and yada, yada, yada. And then when it was time for them to vote on it, and mind you, California is blue, I don't know how long that's going to last for that California is going to be blue, looking at how many counties flipped red in this election. But, for the most part, blue state from top to bottom. And they gave you blue balls all the way up until it's time to vote for it, right? And make it law. And then what did Gavin Newsom and the DNC Congressional Black Caucus of California do? They slammed the door in black folks' face right at the last minute. Right at the last minute, they walked you all the way to the finish line and said, psych, boom, and shut the door in your face. But hey, what do I know? Vote blue no matter who, right? Vote blue no matter who. Just black folks just keep on voting Democrat because apparently, Democrats love black people so much. Jimmy Rucker stated, Jimmy Rucker ran it back. He spun the block. Jimmy Rucker said, it's not woke. It's left-leaning white supremacy. Now, that's a very interesting take. And I want to thank you all for joining me today, man. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video out on your social media platforms. Follow me on Telegram. I cannot stress that enough. Telegram. I'm going to forever beg for you guys to follow me on Telegram. Thank you all for your time. Telegram at TD Media Group. Link is in the description box. Link is in the pinned comment section and pinned in the live chat. Thank you all for your time, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace and have a great afternoon.